and 3, which talked about this as a threshold, 10,000 metric ton, as a threshold which, quote, effectively relieves the agriculture and commercial building sectors from reporting, substantially reduces the number of manufacturing facilities that would report, while continuing to capture 80% of emissions. So clearly this is not true. We also know the current status, Mr. President. We've got some businesses, major emitters, reporting to the Department of Energy. Some report to the EPA, some report every 3 years, some report every week, some report every year. This is not the kind of information that we expect to have in order to make policy decisions on climate change. In his letter, the senior senator from Oklahoma also said that organizations such as the Sierra Club or the Natural Resources Defense Council would be put in charge of third-party verification and have access to confidential business information. This is so inaccurate that I do not even know where to begin. Under my amendment, the EPA administrator may ensure that reports are certified by a third-party entity, but as with the California Climate Registry, third-party verifiers will have to be verified themselves as experienced firms in providing greenhouse gas emission certifications. These are engineering firms. They're not political interest groups. Finally, they've claimed that this amendment did not go through the committee process. Well, that interests me, Mr. President, because a little over 5 years ago, Senator Brownback, Republican senator, along with then Senator Corzine of New Jersey, passed an amendment in this chamber creating a greenhouse gas registry. This registry would have been voluntary, but after 5 years, if the registry contained less than 60% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S., that's clearly where we are now, mandatory reporting would have been triggered. Well, sadly, the bill didn't get ultimately through this Congress, but the point is this chamber has already voted on this. Here's the simple truth. This amendment seeks to create common standards for measuring, tracking, verifying, and reporting greenhouse gas emissions by major industries. It requires the Environmental Protection Agency, not exactly an engine of radical reform at this moment. It requires the EPA to consider cost and coordinate with existing federal and state programs to implement this registry. This is an opportunity. If the Senate would be willing to put its head up and vote on this measure, it's an opportunity to at least get the accurate data so we can start talking about climate change reform. You know, Mr. President, I never knew I would end up here in the United States Senate. I grew up in a middle-class family. My grandpa was a miner and a logger. My dad was a journalist. My mom, an elementary school teacher. I worked jobs all my life as a pie cutter. I worked as a car hop. I worked as a secretary. I went to public high school. I got a law degree. I went to a law firm. I ended up being privileged to be the district attorney for the largest county in Minnesota. And when Senator Dayton decided that he wasn't going to run again for the United States Senate, I ran for the United States Senate. And it's been my belief throughout my life that you can get things done if you've got right on your side, and if you're able to work with other people, you can get things done and you can change things. It started in 4th grade when I was the first girl to wear bell-bottom pants, the first girl to wear pants in my public elementary school. I was kicked out by Mrs. Quady, the principal, but I came back the next day, and within a year the girls were allowed to wear pants. I then went on, and in high school they said we couldn't raise enough money to have our high school prom, and we sold Lifesaver lollipops, and we got it done. As DA, we had troubled crime in a lot of our neighborhoods, and we reached out to these neighborhoods, and they organized, and they did a lot of good work. And we had some amazing examples of individual citizens getting things done on the front end. Well, now we're here, Mr. President, and we have a major challenge confronting us, and that is the challenge of climate change. And there are people out there waiting for us to do something about it. There's a scientist out there right now seeing how the sea level's going up. There's another scientist that's measuring temperatures and sees how, since the Ice Age, we've only had a 5-degree increase in temperature. In just the last century, we've seen a 1-degree increase, with the EPA estimating a 3 to 8 degree increase in just the next 100 years. There are little kids out there wearing Save the Penguin buttons right now who are waiting for us to act. There's a hunter up in Hibbing, Minnesota, who sees the changes in the wetlands. He's waiting for us to act. There's a ski resort owner up in Grand Marais, Minnesota, who had 30% less profits in this last year because of the decrease in snow. He's waiting for us to act. So that's why I ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to allow this important amendment to be heard. It doesn't dictate what the policy will be. It simply asks that we collect accurate information. You know, I'm an optimist. The seat that I hold was once held by Hubert Humphrey, and at the end of his life, he said the words that are on his grave. He said, you know, people consider me sentimental, but to the end I remain an optimist, he said. I remain an optimist with joy and without apology about this great American experiment in democracy. Well, I remain an optimist too, Madam President. I remain an optimist because I've seen the great work that the senator from New Mexico and others have done on this energy bill, and I believe more can be done. I remain an optimist that this bill will ultimately pass, if not today, and this amendment will ultimately pass on another bill. Thank you very much, Madam President. I yield the floor.